Hi guys, so I welcome you all to the second part of the current affairs of the month of October with regard to SEBI, which are very important for the upcoming SEBI Grade A 2018 examination. So let's start with the first news item, which is SEBI revises norms for recovery of investors' money. So recently, SEBI has revised the norms with regard to recovery of investors' money, and in this regard, SEBI has issued new regulations, which is SEBI appointment of administrator and procedure for refunding to the investors. And this has come into effect from October 3. So this is one of the very recent regulations issued by SEBI, and thus they are very important for upcoming examination. And as per these regulations, in case an entity is not traceable, so if any company it is not traceable or it is not complying with the directions issued by the SEBI, the recovery officer can appoint an administrator for the purpose of selling the properties attached. So if there is an entity who has to return the money of the investors, and if this entity is not returning it or it is untraceable, then what will happen? An administrator will be appointed. Now, for the purpose of being appointed as an administrator, it has been provided that only an entity which is registered with the IBBI, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, which is the nodal board with regard to implementation of the IBC, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code. So it is provided that only an entity which is registered with this IBBI, that is Insolvency and Bankruptcy Board of India, only that can be a eligible candidate for appointment as administrator. So this is what we have to remember, that now these regulations have come into place and an administrator would have to be registered as an insolvency resolution professional with IBBI. Now next is SEBI asks suspected shell companies to cooperate in forensic audits. Now, similar kinds of news we have already covered in the previous months, and we are already aware about this concept of forensic audit. So SEBI has again asked over a dozen of suspected shell companies. Now, what are shell companies? Now, shell companies, they are dubious entities. They are the entities which are seemingly fraudulent, and they are being mainly used for illegal money laundering. So they are not a company in the real sense. They are just a front which has been created. They are just a shell company. It is not having any real assets with it. It is just a company on the papers. However, this term shell company is not explicitly defined under the provisions of the Companies Act. Now, SEBI has asked over a dozen of suspected shell companies to extend cooperation to ensure completion of forensic audits in a time-bound manner. So SEBI is getting the forensic audits conducted so as to make sure whether these companies, they are really shell companies, so that if they are really shell companies, and some action can be initiated by SEBI against these companies. Now, if they do not cooperate with these forensic audits, SEBI is going to take a stringent action against these entities. Now, with regard to forensic audit, this is being conducted by independent auditors which are being appointed by stock exchange on the direction of SEBI. Now, next is MDs at stock exchanges, depositories and clearing corporations. Now, these in popular terms, they are referred to as MIIs, that is Market Infrastructure Institutions. So MDs, that is managing directors, at these institutions, they can have two terms of 5 years each. So SEBI has recently brought in some changes with regard to corporate governance, with regard to market infrastructure institutions, and related news with regard to this we have already covered in one of the previous ones also. So we have to remember that now these changes, they have been approved, and as per the changes, the first term in these organizations, that is stock exchange, depository and clearing corporation, it can be extended by another term subject to satisfactory performance review. Further, the SEBI has modified the definition and norms relating to disclosure of compensation of the key management personnel. Now, as per the provisions of the company law, the compensation which is being given to the key management personnel of the company, like managing directors, it has to be disclosed in the annual report of the company and different other mediums. So with regard to this also, certain changes have been made. Now let's take a look at more about these reforms, though they are not much relevant in the technical sense, but still broadly we should have a fair idea of what these reforms are about. So a cooling off period of 1 year has been provided for being nominated as a public interest director in another market infrastructure institution, while this period will be 3 years for a director. So public interest directors, they are mainly concerned with the interest of the public. So these directors, they have to be appointed, and as per the SEBI regulations, the number of public interest directors on the governing board as well as different committees of these market infra institutions, they should be at least equal to the number of other directors which are shareholder directors, including the managing director. Further, with regard to the term of public interest director, it has been provided that a person shall be nominated as a public interest director for a maximum of 3 terms across these market infra institutions, subject to a maximum age limit of 75 years. Next is SEBI eases cost compliance burden on the issuer of debt securities. So SEBI wants that the issuer of debt securities should have an easier compliance regime, and in this regard, SEBI has taken certain decisions, and these decisions include doing away with the requirement of 1% security deposit with the exchanges for public issuance of debt securities. So earlier, if you were to come up with a public issue of debt security, 1% of the amount which was offered to the public, it was required to be deposited with the stock exchanges as a security. So now this has been done away with, so that the complaints relating to refund of application money, allotment of securities, and dispatch of certificates, among others, can be resolved speedily. So this was the purpose of this keeping of 1%, that for if there was any complaint or issue, this could be resolved speedily. But now SEBI has shifted its focus and wants to make sure that the different persons, they do not feel a issue of debt securities as a cumbersome task. They should feel very light and easy while issuing the debt securities. So that's why this provision has been made. So this decision has come after the board of SEBI approved a proposal in this regard in its recent meeting. Next is SEBI asks depository participants to report FPI registration on monthly basis. Now SEBI wants to bring in transparency in the processing of applications for FPI registration, that is foreign portfolio investor registration. So in this regard, SEBI has recently asked the depository participants to inform on a monthly basis about the average time which they are taking in dealing with such requests of registration of FPIs. The designated depository participants, for this purpose, they will have to provide certain data to SEBI in a prescribed format. They will have to provide the number of FPI applications they have received, the average time they took in processing these applications during the immediately preceding month, and this has to be provided monthly, and but it has to be provided by 5th working day of every month in a prescribed format. So this provision has been made because SEBI now wants to make sure that FPI registration regime is going on smoothly and transparency is being ensured in this process. Further, these depository participants will have to endeavor to dispose of the application for grant of registration as soon as possible. And for this purpose, a time limit of 30 days have been prescribed. So they have to at max dispose these applications within 30 days of receipt of such application. So this is something which you must remember. Next is SEBI cautions investors against dealing with foreign trading portals. So SEBI has recently sounded a note of caution for investors who are dealing with foreign trading portals or platforms. So SEBI has said that the investors who are dealing in the recognized stock exchange in India, they are very safe because in India we are having options such as dispute redressal mechanism and investor grievance redressal mechanism. So these kind of mechanisms, they are available if you are trading on recognized stock exchanges in India. But if the domestic investors, they are trading on the foreign platforms, foreign websites, then they are not protected, and hence they can be cheated also. So this is why they should remain away from the foreign trading portals, and they should invest through the recognized stock exchanges in India. Now let's also take a brief look at the SEBI's investor dispute redressal mechanism. Now SEBI has a comprehensive mechanism in this regard, and SEBI wants to facilitate the redressal of grievances of investors against the intermediaries as well as the listed companies. So it follows up with the companies and intermediaries who do not redress investors' grievances. So if the companies and intermediaries, they are not looking up to the investors' grievances, SEBI is going to follow up with them by sending them continuous reminders that you should effectively and expeditiously resolve their grievances. And even if they are not resolved, SEBI is going to have a meeting with them. It takes appropriate enforcement actions where the progress in the redressal of investor grievance is not satisfactory. So SEBI can also take certain actions against these entities. Further, it has also set up a comprehensive arbitration mechanism. So if any dispute is there and it has to be resolved, it can be resolved using this arbitration mechanism. Further, the stock exchanges, they are required to have investor protection funds so that they can compensate the investors if any broker is declared as a defaulter. So there are different sorts of mechanisms which are there with regard to investor dispute redressal, and they are only available for trading through the recognized stock exchanges and not through the trading on the foreign websites or foreign portals. Next is SEBI to levy rupee 1 lakh per exchange on agri commodity derivatives turnover. So this we have already covered in one of the previous months also. So recently SEBI has drawn up this framework that it is going to levy only a nominal regulatory fee of rupees 1 lakh per exchange on the turnover which is arising from agricultural commodity derivatives. So SEBI wants to promote these agricultural commodity derivatives because this is going to ultimately promote the farming community in India. So as a promotional measure, SEBI has announced this thing, and in order to pass on the desired benefits with regard to reduction of regulatory fees, SEBI has also asked that the exchanges who are dealing with these commodities, they should create a separate fund which should be set up for benefit of farmers and farmer producer organizations. And in this particular regard, SEBI has amended regulatory fee on stock exchanges regulations, which came into effect from 1st of April 2018. Next is SEBI rejigs primary market advisory panel. So SEBI is having a primary market advisory committee which is advising the SEBI on different issues with regard to regulation and development of primary market, that is IPOs or initial public offers and other related segments. On the terms of reference of this committee, they include advising SEBI on matters to be taken up for change in the legal framework, to introduce simplification and transparency in the systems and procedures on the primary market. So this is mostly concerned with bringing reforms with regard to primary market. So we are all aware that the capital market is composed of two components: primary market, which is mostly composed of the initial public offers from company to the investors, and the secondary market that provides liquidity to the shares issued in the primary market by promoting trading of securities among the investors. Now there is this 24-member primary market advisory panel, and this panel is chaired by Mr. P.V. Mohandas Pai, who is the chairman of Manipal Global Education Services. Now the next is SEBI proposes measures to strengthen the framework for debenture trustees. So in order to secure the interests of the debenture holders, now debentures, we are all aware, there are kind of debt instruments which are issued by the company. And now SEBI wants to secure the interest of the debt holders, and for this purpose, debenture trustees are required to be appointed. Now SEBI wants to make certain changes with regard to provisions for debenture trustees. And they include raising minimum net worth requirement for being registered as a debenture trustee to rupees 10 crore from the current rupees 2 crore. So now only more well-off entities will be eligible to become debenture trustees, and the new criteria will help in restricting the registration of debenture trustees to financially sound entities who are having net worth of around rupees 10 crore. The SEBI has suggested that 3-year time period for attaining this net worth requirement, it should be granted to the debenture trustees. So in this regard, consultation paper has been issued recently. So all those changes, they have not been made final yet. Only a consultation paper has been issued with regard to this. Only the measures have been proposed by SEBI. Now, what are debenture trustees? Well, debenture trustee is a person or entity that serves as the holder of debenture stock for the benefit of another party, which is debenture holders who are investors. So the debenture trustees, they are taking care of the interest of the debenture investors on their behalf, and they are responsible for liquidating or selling the collateral or the mortgage in the event the company defaults on its debentures. So if the company did not pay any interest or principal on the debentures, the debenture trustee, they can sell the underlying asset which was kept as security. So this is the position of debenture trustees. So there is a company, there is a debenture holders, and there is a trustee. So this trustee is acting on the trust of the debenture holders. So they are in a way acting as a liaison between the company and the debenture holders. Now let's take a look at more about these proposals. So SEBI has proposed that there should be no requirement for calling of a meeting of debenture holders in case of any default in case of public issues. The debenture trustees, they should be allowed to directly enforce the security without obtaining any consent from the debenture holders. So it has been provided that in case of any default, there should be no requirement to call up the meeting of debenture holders, because this is simply going to delay the things. The debenture trustees, they should be made empowered to take the necessary action themselves only. Further, there have been different cases of delay in enforcement of the security interest in the event of default, and this is harmful to the interest of investors, and that's why this kind of mechanism has been proposed. And SEBI has proposed various measures and sought comments from the public till 16th of November on these sets of measures. So for now, we must be aware about the concept of debenture trustees. That is how they are acting as a mode of liaison between the debenture holders and the company. Next is BSc SEBI organize awareness program for SMEs and startups. So with regard to small and medium enterprises and startups, BSc along with SEBI organized an awareness program, and this was organized in Shimla. So Shimla in Himachal Pradesh, this program was organized for small and medium scale enterprises and startups so that they can be made aware about the different benefits they can get from listing. So this event was focused on clarifying the eligibility criteria to the SMEs and startups, and explaining them the benefits of getting their companies listed. A recently listed company on BSE's SME platform. So there is a separate platform for SMEs on BSE. So recently a company in Flame Appliances Limited was listed on this platform. It also came into this awareness program, and it shared its experience, how it has benefited from the SME platform of the Bombay Stock Exchange, and how the other companies, they can also make use of this particular platform. Now, if we talk about the SME platforms, then for the purpose of allowing the SMEs to get themselves listed at a reduced compliance cost, this BSE and NSE, they have come up with an SME platform. So here the rules are much relaxed as compared to the normal trading platform. So BSE Limited has set up this BSE SME platform, BSE SME platform, and NSE in this regard has set up a merge platform for SMEs. So this is something which we have to remember. And these platforms, they offer an entrepreneur and investor friendly environment. So this enables that SMEs, they get themselves listed and obtain the benefits associated with the listing process. So we have to remember that Emerge is the SME platform for National Stock Exchange. Now let's take a look at some of the MCQs which can be framed out of this topic. New regulations, SEBI appointment of administrator and procedure for refunding to the investors has come into effect from. Options are 7th September 2018, 3rd October 2018, 1st November 2018, or none of the above. So this we have covered that these new regulations, they are to come into effect from 3rd of October 2018. So the answer to this is going to be option number B. Next question. SEBI recently asked depository participants to inform on a dash basis about the average time taken by them in dealing with the requests of FPI registration. Options are monthly, quarterly, half yearly, or yearly. So this we have seen that the depository participants are required to furnish this information on monthly basis. So answer to this is going to be option number A. Next question. Primary Market Advisory Committee of SEBI is chaired by. Options are T.V. Mohandas Pai, Narayan Murthy, T.K. Vishwanathan, Y.V. Reddy. So this we have recently seen that this committee is chaired by none other than T.V. Mohandas Pai. So the answer to this question is going to be option number A. Next question. Emerge is SME platform of BSE, NSE, OTCI, or none of the above. So this also we have seen that emerge is the SME platform for National Stock Exchange or NSE. So answer to this is going to be option number B. So friends, these are the answers. So friends, this was all about our discussion on the SEBI current affairs for the month of October 2018. Thank you.